If you ever opened a page builder, stared at a blank canvas, and had absolutely no idea where to start, this video is for you. But in this video, you're going to have a real working web page built inside Breakdance. Not a template, not a demo, something you actually made. Let's go. Before we touch Breakdance, here's what I'm assuming. You've got WordPress installed, Breakdance is installed and activated, and you've got a blank page ready to go. If you haven't done that yet, pause this, get that sorted, and come back. Everything else, I'm going to walk you through step by step. Here's the one thing I want you to understand before we build anything. Breakdance works in structure. You've got sections, and you've got elements like columns and grids. Think of it like this. The sections are full of bed across the page. Inside that section, you can input column or you can put input grids. That helps you build the layout of your page. Once you understand the structure of Breakdance, everything else makes sense. Let me show you. As we see here, I'm in the canvas, and we're going to click up in the left-hand side here, button. You're going to see the elements library open up with some basic elements here that you can utilize to your sections, your columns, and your grid, like I was discussing before. Some headings, some text, rich text, text links, buttons, images, videos, and icons. These are the basic blocks when it comes to building your layouts and your pages. You also have some more advanced elements such as your blocks, which are actually pre-made elements in Breakdance for you to utilize at this point. You could also go into Site, where you can build header builders, utilize the WP menu if you want to build down the back end, utilize a menu builder that is provided by Breakdance, and also include a search form for your articles. You also have the advanced section, which is for your more advanced widgets such as Analytics WP events if you installed Analytics WP, content toggles, some code blocks. You even have advanced accordions, content reveals, and you can even utilize global blocks, which will be touched on in a later video, shortcodes, and even HTML image. We also have dynamic options here for you to utilize, and you can also have your form builder for get passwords, basic form builder, a login form, and even a register form. We're just going to go over the basic blocks currently. So to make a hero section, we're going to go ahead and drag and drop this section here as you place this here. And you will see that there is a duplicate option and a trash option. So we can duplicate any section we have already built out in the past. And you can also do this from this top right corner here where you see a bunch of layers. That is your structure of your page, so you can actually review the full structure in its entirety. For now, we will go ahead and delete this. I'm going to go back to add. You don't have to just drag and drop. You can just click on section and it will appear here too. Next, I want to build out pretty much a 2-column section here. I'm trying to make this a nice hero, and we're trying to utilize pretty much that left and right when it comes to those columns displaying the information we want to. So for example, I have the columns element here. I will drag and drop. And now you see your column structure appears. We can have either 2-column, 50% of width structure. We can use a triple column setup. We can set 4 columns, a 25%, 75%, and a 75%, 25%. I'm going to use 50-50 as it's the easiest to implement at this point. Now coming over here, we'll go ahead and add a heading. And you want to make sure you set your, since the hero section, we'll set it to H1 because that's usually what we want to do for proper technical SEO purposes. And it also makes it easier for crawls to understand what that page context is about. Usually want one H1 per page, as that is strictly the only H1 that should appear for those purposes. Now, as we can see here, we have that heading set here. And as you click over these elements and hover, you can actually see where the columns reside and where you can actually click these and modify them. So we'll go to heading here. We're going to name this our hero title. Actually, we'll name it BD Boogie Hero Tutorial. Next, I want to add some text. Now, 2 options with text. You could just use the basic text element or the rich text. If you're adding options like lists or structured unordered list, ordered list, those kind of options, I'd suggest using rich text as well as you're adding because you want to make sure that this text element has the ability to do so, but you're going to want to use rich text for that because it's a lot easier. And I'll show you the difference between these two right now. So we have over text, we have just the basic text element here that we can utilize, and say we add rich text here. You'll see an option actually go to a text box, and you can actually manipulate this to go to the code side, and you can see the code that's outputted here, and you go to the visual side. As you can see, we have the options for bold, italics, bulleted list, numbered list. These are all options that we usually see on the basic text editor for WordPress, and that's what's being utilized here for rich text. But if you're just using very basic text and you're not trying to modify anything, then the text element is great for you in this circumstance. Now we can see here, we don't have great spacing between these 2 elements. So to incorporate some spacing, we have 2 options. You can hover over the elements themselves and actually drag the margin to a certain extent. So now I set it to 20px margin bottom, so that will always appear on that element. Or you can go to the design options, which is this color palette option here. is where all your design options live for your elements. And you can actually go to the spacing size. You can see the 20px margin bottom has already been incorporated because of that drag option I did. But we can also just do it here and set it via the design options. So now that we have a little bit more spacing here, I'm also going to want to incorporate some spacing on this text element because I'm going to add a button next, and I'm going to set that to 15, close to it. Go over here to our button element. As you can see here, I actually dragged it below the 2 columns. So to correct that, just drag and drop, and you'll even see a highlight line option to see where these elements are dragging and dropping. So you can actually see that placement. So now I have it here. We have that spacing set here, and also the call to action to just get started. Now option for a link here, and these link options pretty much go into your insert edit link options here. So you can even incorporate pages you've built in the past, posts that you've built in the past. You can search through the database of your site at that point, or if you know the exact URL, you can put that in there too. You also have a gear option here, which tells you what kind of link we're going to be incorporating here. The URL could be a light box, especially if you're doing pop-ups. You can do contact, and you can do action, which also incorporates into the pop-up option or a control slider option. In case you want to have the option for 2 buttons in place and a carousel in place, so you can have that slider move with those buttons being attached to them. We'll get to that in a later video for advanced options. For now, we are just going to set up the URL, and you have the option to set to tab. Especially if you're going off-site, this is something I recommend. We want to make sure that the user stays on the site at least. A tab is open for our site. That helps reduce that bounce rate, and also just make sure that users can come right back to the site instead of having to hit the back button. You also have some advanced options here, like setting an ID or some attributes that you can utilize for that link itself. With that all said and done, we now have pretty much a basic hero, H1 hero title, a text, description text, and a button. Now in this right-hand side column, I want to go ahead and add an image. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the image element and drag and drop here. And you see a few options here. You can actually pull from your media library, or you can utilize the URL that you have. The media library is usually the option I am going with, as we want to make sure we have these images set on the site. And we'll go ahead and use this one here, where, of course, the usual WordPress options of alt text, captions, and descriptions are there. Now we'll set it here. My image is not that large, so we can adjust that image here to actually fit what we want it to. So we have a few options when it comes to that design palette again. We have width, max width, and height. For now, I'm just going to set it to 300px when it comes to the width of that image. And we can see here it's left aligned a little bit in this column. So we can actually just center this by going to the column and seeing the design options that the column provides us. We have a few options here. We have layout, background size. The size is set to 50% because at the beginning, we set the columns to 50%, 50%. And that can be changed here as well. And you can see that in the structure here too. As we have column and we have the columns. And you can change the sizing here when it comes to how these 2 columns interact with each other. But now we're going back to column, and we'll put that structure aside for now. I want to make sure that this is centered for the image. So we'll go here where we have a few layout options, such as the vertical option, the horizontal option, we have grid, and we have advanced options, gets into like flex and grid opportunities. If you're familiar with CSS, definitely utilize this to your advantage. But right now, we will do the vertical, and we will set to align center and vertical align center. No gap because it's the only image present. And now we have a very nice centered image here. Now we're pretty much getting right to the weeds of how our hero section should look. And now at this point, I want to go ahead and maybe add a background image to this section. That is also available in your design options. And when it comes to design options, each element has a few different opportunities for you to utilize. So I heavily suggest exploring these areas, as you can actually find quite a lot of design options for you to really make a site yours at that point. So for example, I'm going to make a background, and I have a few options here: image, gradient, video, slideshow. I'm going to use image for now. I'm going to use this dark image that I have. And now we see that the image fits in the background, but our text is not matching. It is dark. You cannot see it. So we're going to do a few modifications here. For one, the section, we can add an overlay option and darken up this background a bit. So for example, I will darken this here and set it to a little bit of transparency. This is going to help that content actually pop when it comes to us adjusting this to white. And now we can see we have a better designed hero section. Very basic for the most part. It is looking pretty good. Now let's go back to this column here, because now I'm noticing something that, we have this center aligned here and this center aligned here. Let's also do the same to this option here. Now the option to center align this here, but I'd rather do text left to right when it comes to hero sections, unless I'm making a very centered hero section. For a design, I usually utilize left alignment more specifically, And for that purpose, to set it here centered on that vertical line. So now that we have our hero section pretty much established, let's go over a few options when it comes to our design elements. For example, we have our heading here, our H1. We have a full range of typography settings, and this applies for all your text elements when it comes to Breakdance. And you can assign colors, alignment, set customs and presets. And we will get into presets when it comes to our global settings video, but for now, we will just stick to the basics, where you can assign a font family, your font sizes. For example, I can set this to 12 px, I can set it to 18 px. But for text elements, you're going to want to utilize something called REM. That is pretty much a responsiveness option when it comes to our text. So for example, if we are showing up on a mobile view, such as a cell phone or a tablet, that text is going to pretty much size itself to that screen instead of using something like px, which is like a hard value for your text elements. So for this one, I will use 3. And if we go into this top option here, you can see we have the ability to change our screen layouts. For example, I'm at desktop right now, but if we go to full portrait, we now see that the font size is being borrowed from the desktop. And if we click this little icon here, we can see that all these elements are borrowing from the desktop because it's highlighted blue. There's no other options that are changing here. We're just borrowing that 3 REM. Now, say we set the value to 25 px here. It's still set there, but let's go 65, maybe want it larger than that, 75. These are hard-coded values. As you can see here, once I get to 127 px, we finally see that it's breaking that width screen. And since it's a hard value that's set in, and we go back to desktop, it is still utilizing 3 REM, and it's specifically using 127 px on the mobile. So just removing this, we'll get it back to using that parent that's currently existing on the desktop. And that's what I suggest for you when you're using your text elements to make sure that you're following the proper sizing for your responsiveness. We will get into global settings more when it comes to typography and colors. That's going to make your life a lot easier when it comes to building out your websites. But for now, we're just going over the basics of these typography options, as well as the design elements that you can utilize in Breakdance. So that's font size there. We also have weight options, your line height, and some more advanced options here, like transforming to all caps, first letter being capitalized, all lowercase, or none. We have text wrap options, no wrap, balance, and pretty. These are all CSS options for you when it comes to what's being available for you in Breakdance. We also have some effects here. Some really cool ones that we can implement are like a stroke color. When it comes to that area, we'll go and set that to this color. We'll do 1 px, and you can see that it applies to that background of that text. So if we do something like a little darker, you can see it highlight there. Let's go red. You can see that it's matching that color in. And it just gives you more design options to utilize for effects at that point. You can also fill like transparent, your gradient, and that would be the gradient color, which is a selection for you here. We have a few options when it comes to that area. So just play around these settings, see what you like, and go from there. And one other thing I want to mention to you is when you add a setting to any option in Breakdance, you'll see a little dot to the left-hand side of that setting, and you have the ability to wipe all of that out if you hover over that little dotted X. You can even do that within the options themselves too. So say I want to get rid of that stroke width, I just hit that option there. And say you made a mistake. Say you decided that you didn't want to do that to your element, then you go back. You have the option here to actually go to the top right, and you have a reverse option. Or you could do Control Z, and it will also replicate that same back option for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of all these effects here. And that pretty much goes over the typography options for you here. And the same applies to images. You have a few options for yourself here, like setting aspect ratio, some effects on them as well, some borders, and some spacing when it comes to that too. So now we have our main hero section built out. I'm going to build out the second section. And this section is just mainly for me to go and add one of the block elements that is provided by Breakdance. And I'm going to go ahead and add the icon box block. As you can see here, I now have one icon box that is a pre-built element provided by Breakdance that you can modify real easily. This just makes website design and website development a lot easier for you. It also provides easy access to your clients so they understand these elements are easily clickable and modifiable. But as we can see here, we're going to go back to the structure side of things to Breakdance. I have a section and I have an icon box and that's it. But that doesn't really do much for me when it comes to the layout structure. Say I duplicate this icon box again. It's just filling into this section and the layout of the section, which is set to vertical. And it's going to continue doing so. So that's really why the importance of these column and grids need to exist, is so we have an easy way to set up structure for our design. For this section, I'm going to use grid. And here we have the option for items per row. I'm going to set 3 items per row. So every time there are 3 items in place here, the next row will begin after that for 3 more items. And we can set spacing So I'll set 25px for there. And we have some advanced options such as setting these item verticals alignments to center or start and end, and using the original item dimensions. Now that we have this grid element in place, I'm gonna go back to where I was doing the icon box before, and I'm gonna duplicate these. And now you can see that it's following that main grid. And if we go into like a different view, it adds nice spacing to it and makes it easy for you to actually interpolate these elements. I'm going to delete this last one here. And now you can see these icon boxes exist and they are editable in their own sections here. And you have the option to rotate, manipulate the title, the text, assign a button, and this can be removed completely so you don't have a button. But for now, we will leave a button on. And you can even assign title tags to these icon boxes. So usually I highly recommend this because you're going to want to make sure they follow a good semantic structure. Now, as you can see that we have these set, I usually like to do it this way by adding a heading above these elements. As you can see, the heading is now not really matching or spaced properly when it comes to this area. So I'll go back to section, and since we're using that vertical element, I will align center, add vertical line center, and then add some spacing at the bottom here. So now we have a pretty nice little section here. And we'll just call this a element example section 2. And now, going back to the semantic side of the heading structure, we see we have the element here that is not assigned yet. So we will assign the stage 2 so it follows proper heading structure, as we have the H1 here. So now it follows H2, and say these elements should now be H3 as they are following a structure. And that will just save you a lot of time in the future. And we will get into the aspects of setting presets and the global settings of these heading structures, so it makes your life a little easier there too. Now that we have these icon boxes set, I actually decided I don't want icon boxes. I actually want to utilize the image box element. And again, we have pre-made elements provided by Breakdance, so play around with this, take a look, see what you really want to utilize and explore when it comes to your designs. And that's pretty much the gist of it when it comes to the basics of building out a structure in Breakdance and sections in Breakdance. And one thing I want to mention before we completely sign off here is make sure to save your progress. As you can see, the top right option here, we have the save option. And that'll make sure that everything you have built is recorded, saved for your utilization, and appears on the front end at that point. After saving, make sure you clear your cache, and we'll go over cache in a later video when it comes to like web design things you should know and development things you should know too. So there you have it. You have seen and followed a tutorial to build out your first hero section and your secondary section. Now, here's your homework. Go build the third section. Pick anything. A testimonial, a contact area, an image gallery. Use the exact same process, the section, the columns, the grid, all available for you to utilize in your layouts. Play around with all the different elements that Breakdance offers, even the advanced ones, just to see what they're capable of and what they're providing. Next video, I'm going to show you how to make your page look consistent using Breakdance global styles. Fonts, colors, spacing, all set in one place so you're not manually styling every single element. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'm Dieter Hillier. This is BD Boogie. Go build something. Let's boogie. I'll see you next time.